I went to the hospital. A couple of hours later, I'm in emergency C-section. She's come in. We're both in intensive care. And we was in the middle of this deal.
Jordan Brompton, welcome to the podcast.
We had the world's first car charger that powered from solar energy. Cool, I know.
You've obviously raised money twice, I think.
Yeah.
I'd love to know the reality of what that takes, how you do it, and how it actually feels to go through the process for people who've never done it before.
We've got sales, we've got this. And we was only asking for 150 grand. And they both said, the two investors said, go away and think about what you really need with that level of order book, and if you need manufacturing equipment and stuff, go away and think about it. And we were like, right. So we're driving home, absolutely buzzing, thought about it, went back to them and said, oh yeah, we want 1.2. And they were like, okay. And we were like, I also had a member of staff come to me and tell me in hospital that the business was going to shit without me being there and people were taking over, and this, you don't know why you want to burst into tears. You don't know why you're more emotional in that board meeting than should be. You don't, like, for 2 years I felt like I had a veil over me, and you have to pretend to be okay or you're not going to make it in your career.
Jordan Brompton, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for being here. I'm going to kick off with a big open question, Jordan. So when you think about your career and some of the things that you've done, what problem do you solve?
Communication, I think. I make complex products and businesses simple to the everyday person. I think that's what I've got a super talent for.
I like that. So then when businesses or individuals are struggling with that, what are typically some of the symptoms that they might be facing in business or leadership? What are they seeing?
In business and leadership, you can get bogged down with the jargon. Like, if you know everything about your industry, or if you're a technical engineer or you're an expert, you're going to speak to people like a technical expert, and the everyday person on the street will be like, what are you on about? So we'll get into it with which business I've run, but the main thing that I looked at is, how do I take this complex problem and turn it into something that's cool and accessible for everybody to understand. And I think I've done that all the way through my life. And I think it's because my dad used to say to me, I think he knew I wasn't very academic, so he used to say to me, don't worry, Jord, because you're a good communicator. So as long as you can communicate with people and you've got common sense, you'll be all right. So I think somewhere subconsciously, because he's drilled that into me, I've leaned into it all my life, and it's actually pretty true. I've found that it's pretty true. Even people that have been to university, the most intelligent people in the room that I've sat with, can't always communicate, especially to an everyday person. So I think that's one thing that I pride myself on, is that I can speak at multiple levels.
That's a massive skill, being able to make something sound like you're in the pub rather than in the boardroom.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. So I suppose when you look back now, so obviously you've had this illustrious, great career that we're going to get into, but when you look back on maybe teenage years, early adult years, were there any signs that maybe I've got some entrepreneurial flair?
I mean, yeah, because I grew up I feel like this is a tagline now that all the politicians use and stuff, like very working class, but I actually did. I grew up in Grimsby. I had a really nice childhood. Mum and dad are still together. Didn't feel like I ever wanted for anything, but growing up now and looking back, I realise how working class we were and how mum and dad shielded me from that and how hard they worked. So my dad used to get up every day, hated his job, used to work offshore just to provide for us so that we could have the holiday or we could have nice things at Christmas and birthday and stuff. But when you then start growing up through school and getting in social situations, you realise, oh my God, there's classes. And I used to go to a friend's house who'd have a freaking swimming pool and this ginormous mansion and horses and stuff. And I guess I was always fixated on that. How did you get this? I think if ever I met someone's parents that had a nice house or something, I'd never look at my mum and dad and be like, do better. I used to think, oh my God, how can I do this? And how can I not put pressure on my parents to want anything when they're in these jobs that they hate, and just trying the best, because they had me quite young. So I've worked from day one of being legally allowed to, probably not legal. I was probably 12 or 13 working on the Sunday market in Cleethorpes selling penny scooters and just earning a bit of commission. And then the second that I was old enough, I was glass collecting in the bars, because I used to be really sociable and a dancer, but I wasn't allowed out because I wasn't old enough. So I was like, how do I get out? I glass collect. And then I used to have full nights out, but glass collecting legally, mental. And I'd do 2 or 3 jobs at a time, because I was fascinated by earning money, and I wanted to earn as much as I physically could for my age group and in my area. So I'd work like 3 or 4 jobs, totally burn myself out, but I'd do it. So I'd be hairdressing in the day, I'd then go wait tables, I'd then go bartend, and then I'd dance in the nightclubs, like podium dance, and then I'd start the day again. So I've never not worked, and I've always fixated on the bosses of whoever I've worked for, and I've been like, wow, you know, like, you're doing that, I'm going to do that, and then try to like level up and just soak in as much information from them as possible, work my way up to where I felt like there was no possible growth, and then go and replicate it somewhere else and just keep growing and growing and growing wherever I could in Grimsby.
So it sounds like that work ethic then was just in you from day one.
Yeah.
Never struggled with that.
Never. I've just worked. Yeah, I've literally worked from the day I'm possibly allowed, or the day anyone would take me on, because I just wanted my own money. I didn't want to put that pressure on my mum and dad. And I used to look at people's lives and think, I want it. I never looked at it with jealousy. I've always looked at it with pure envy and how can I achieve that or get there.
Nice. So we run a sales company, so we're obsessed with all things sales. And I believe that one of your first roles, aside from like the hairdressing and things like that, was selling.
Yeah, I've always sold. Even if it wasn't an actual sales job, I always seem to fall into the role of selling. And I guess it goes back to the communication. So if I like what I'm doing, or if I throw myself into anything, I want to be the best at whatever I'm at. Even if it's just glass collecting, I'll be the best glass collector that bar ever had, and I'll chat to all the customers and I'll get all the tips. It's like, I think everything revolves around communicating and how you make people feel.
What do you think when you think about like communication as a skill? If we were to say it was a house made of Lego and we're going to break it down into like different pieces, what do you think are those fundamentals that you've got that make you a good communicator?
I think it's being personal. So being able to read the room and being personal to the people that are in front of you, whether it's it'd be difficult now, but I was going to say the Queen, or whether it's a guy on the street. I think as long as you can read the room and the mood music and people's body language, I guess I've always had a natural ability or flair to do that. I think that's a massive piece of it. So just knowing your audience and knowing the room that you're in. There's another scale of it, another brick, which would be confidence, like having the confidence to do it, because a lot of people are painfully shy out there, like they devoid sales. All of it's about communication and relationship building, and even picking up the phone. I'd like take salespeople on and they'll be like, I'll just send an email. I'm like, no, you'll pick up the phone and you'll speak to them. But it's like such a strange thing for people to do if they haven't done it. And I think it's getting even harder in today's day and age with social media and everything being so fast response and WhatsApp and Snapchat and however else people are chatting. Email, everyone avoids it. And even behind a screen, even on a Zoom call, I think you can avoid proper connection and communication. So I think confidence to actually speak to people is a big part of the communication skill. I don't really know what else. I'd have to give it some thought if you broke it all down. I don't know. Can you prompt me to think of any more?
What, from confidence to...
What was the first one that I said? I forgot. Already.
Being personal,
yeah.
Confidence, the ability to listen. Like I think you said it quite beautifully, like the ability to just keep it simple and read the room, and that EQ piece.
Yeah. Yeah, emotional intelligence is something that, again, I think is one of the most underrated skills, especially in selling. But I think somebody with emotional intelligence will always outsell someone that hasn't got it.
Yeah, definitely. So we're probably missing a piece of the puzzle there, right? So you've gone from 100 different varied jobs a day, working every hour that God sends, to then being the founder of a business. What's the bit that we're missing there? How did you go from that to being a founder?
I guess... So I have had a really colourful and different varied background, which I think helped me get to the point of founding myenergi. And I did have a business before that, which was cycling distribution products. So there's just I've got a varied background, but I guess going into to starting something myself was just like, why the hell not? It was a bit like a lame comparison, but you know, like how the Kardashians were literally had this massive global following and they were promoting everybody else's products, and then one day just again the light bulb goes, and why don't I just promote my own products, or why don't I do it for myself? I'm working that hard for everybody else, making everybody else money, why don't I learn and do it for myself. So it's just literally that feeling. But it's not, I don't think that feeling's enough to go and do something. You have to have like a passion or like some sort of, I'm quite spiritual, so I just literally know when I know something, or you get the hairs stand up on the back of your neck, like that is a good idea, I'll just fully throw myself into it. So I knew that myenergi, the one that we're going to talk about, was the most amazing idea, and I knew it was going to work from day one.
So what made you know? What was the I know?
It was the fact, so I'm an interesting person in the sense that I like to stick it to the man a little bit. I've always been, before the word conspiracy theorist was thrown around everywhere, I've always been a bit of a conspiracy theorist. I've always been awake. I've always been unplugged from the matrix, whatever you want to call it. And I guess the second that I realised, like my light bulb moment, was when I met an engineer called Lee, and he had invented this little tiny device that literally took solar power from your roof and diverted it to your hot water tank. Not very glamorous, not very exciting. But my brain was like, hang on a minute. So if I've got solar panels on my roof, I can heat my hot water for free. So I'm already thinking I'm not paying the energy companies like to heat. That's the biggest expense in the house is heating. So I'm like, I'm having a free bath. And I was like, oh my God, that's genius. Like that's actually genius. It's not the actual little product, it's the whole concept. Because I've always loved the idea of living off grid, like being off grid. But I quite like the comforts of life as well. And I'm like, yeah, stick it to the man, but I'll buy another Starbucks. I'm terrible. But I was like, I love the idea of being virtually off grid. So the second that whole concept clicked to me about being virtually off grid, like not going and living in the woods, but being virtually off grid, I was like, we gotta fucking do this. I'm like, I can do this. I can sell this to the world. You get in your shed, get inventing some products, find out where else you can divert that power, and I'll sell it. I'll communicate that with the world. That is genius. And he was like, okay, that's very passionate for such a little product, but I get it. And that was it. It was just, we're off to the races, really.
So paint a picture for us and the people listening. What did those early days actually look like? Because people will see you now and see the things you've achieved and go, oh, that's amazing. I want to do that. I want that life. But I imagine that when you look back at the early days, it probably wasn't as glamorous. What did that actually look like?
It wasn't as glamorous, but it was really fun. So even in the height of it being like the most stressful, when we thought like we literally can't afford to pay the few staff that we had, the engineers that were helping Lee develop the products, it was like stressful, but it was still fun because it was just hours. So we were just hustling, figuring it out. I was out there getting pre-orders, sale orders, deposits off people to keep the cash flow coming in. Lee was in the back, like working on products, trying to get them to market and figure out how to manufacture them from our little facility that we had in Binbrook at the time. And I just look back on it with really fond memories, although stressful, really fond memories. And it's like age-old classic saying, "Mom, money, mob problems." It was literally that, like the bigger and bigger the business got, the more and more people you put in it, the stress was so different to the start-up, scale-up stage. Like I love the start-up, scale-up stage. Maybe it's the awakened, non-bureaucratic person in me that I don't like red tape. And I feel like once something gets too red tapey and corporate and you've built something to that thing, I start to like not resist against it, but just be a bit like, ugh. Where when you've got full freedom to like problem solve and grow the business and sail and hustle, you're on your hustle, it feels loads different. So I look back on it with fond memories, but I guess I didn't know what was coming in the sense of how massive it was going to be, how much bigger the problems would be, how much more challenging it would get. But I've loved all of it, but it has had real moments of feeling like my head's going to cave in.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that we'll probably get into that. So when you think about like marketing, I imagine that when you're marketing after an investment round of 30 million compared to the early days from sales and marketing, you probably have to think outside the box a bit more. You probably have to be...
You think outside the box more when you don't have the money.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So like, you probably got to be a bit creative. So the things you can do on one end to the other end. Mm-hmm. So when you were thinking about sales, marketing, growing this brand and this business, what were you thinking about in the early days? How were you getting it out there?
Yeah, so I, again, loved the early days. So it was, for me, branding myenergi, I just looked at the competitors. It didn't look very far. There was a few competitors that had like car chargers, for example. So we had the world's first car charger that powered from solar energy. Cool, I know. But that was like what it was. And I was like, how do we give this like some identity and a name? Because the products on the market that didn't charge off solar, that just pulled full power from the building and put it into the car, like glorified socket essentially, were like charge EV 123. Like I was like, right, this is something that's going to be stuck on somebody's house, outside somebody's house. I want kids to engage with it. I want women to engage with it. I want blokes that are fitting it for it to be like Lee used to be an installer, so he wanted it easy for them to fit. I wanted it to be able to speak the language to them as well, to the electricians, to the traders. And I wanted it to just become something that was cool. So I was like, right, we need the name on the product. So straight away, if people are photographing it and photographing the work, it's like elevating the message. Because that was one thing that competitors just never did. They never had the name of the company and they never had the name of the product on the actual. You miss an amazing opportunity to market to the neighbours of those people. So it was give each product an identity. And when we called it myenergi because it is your energy in your home, but myenergi with a Y was taken. Classic. Wow. So that's why we put the I on the end, and I was like, it stands for intelligence, independence, like. We just freeballed all this stuff, and I was like, let's go with this I theme because it looks more technical. And then we started to name the products like your Zappy, Eddy, and there's method to the madness. Like Zappy's like you zap electricity, quite simple. Eddy, there's a current in heat and electricity for, and that's our water heater. So I thought makes perfect sense. I love it instead of just like H2O heater or some bollocks, I don't know. So Eddy had its own identity. Then Harvey is our patented technology, which ties all of it together, which means less wiring all around the house, and it sends signal from each product to like this a central product to then give you all the information on the app. Saves the electrician loads of time, but it harvests the energy that the CT clamp's clipped around. So if there's a wire, like a cable like this, you put a current transformer on it, and it powers itself from the energy that's going through the wire. So it's harvesting energy. So that's why we called it Harvey. And then Libby is energy, is a lithium ion battery, or liberating yourself from energy independence and freedom. So we just called it Libby. So everything's got like a story to it. And that really differentiated us. So that was the first part. The second part was just like having an actual identity as a brand, like a colour palette, some basic stuff that kind of industry just wouldn't have. And as the brand started to evolve, we had a character called Sparky, which was the little alien, because I always wanted like a mascot for the business so that kids could understand it as well, because then there's longevity in your business and in your brand. If you're actually educating children, they're actually a really big influence in their home as well. So if they're taking home a book that's got subtle drops of myenergi, or a little Zappy charger that's powering Sparky's spaceship because he's an alien from a renewable planet that's teaching kids about renewables. I just thought about longevity there. And then how we marketed the brand, I wanted to really stand out. So everything at the beginning, because we didn't have CRM systems, like big bougie CRM systems, we didn't have an ERP system to manage stock and this, that, and the other. I was like marketing blind. Essentially, I didn't have any data coming back. You're a brand new business. You don't know who your target audience is. Originally, it was like electricians, so we had messages to them. Then it was, how do we start branching further afield? And we did that really well. We looked a lot bigger than what we were in the early days because of how, again, communicating, sales, hustle came into like marketing sponsorship. So we did deals with Extreme E the year that they went live, which was a race without a trace, which was the world's fastest, biggest electric car going all around the world racing, and we had myenergi branded on the outside of it. And with the underdogs race car driver Ollie and Christine at the time, who was a female race car driver. So I loved that whole series because it was a male and a female driver. It was a race without a trace, so it was like good for the planet, and then myenergi was splattered all over it. And I was like, the content we're going to get from that and be able to use from that is just next level. And people saw it and was like, wow, these guys are legit. So it was just looking at ways that our competitors were just not doing, and then trying to negotiate the best deals because we didn't have thousands to spend on marketing. Although we did as the business started doing really well, and because we manufactured ourselves, we had good margins, we did it profitably, and we ploughed a lot of money like back into branding in the early days, in the scale-up days.
I love it.
That was a really long answer, sorry.
No, it's beautiful answer. I love the idea of giving a bit of rock and roll to something that's kind of white, pale, and male, and stale, and whatever other words rhyme with that. But I've sold to installers before, and I've sold to renewable companies, and I know that innovation is quite a hard thing to get over.
Yeah.
When you were trying to bring out these innovative products, I imagine there's a lot of roadblocks just in the psychology of people saying, why would I want to change from what I'm doing already?
Oh my God, yeah.
So how did you manage to get over those early roadblocks, and what were they?
So you bang on, really, because people get comfortable. Like, that's one thing that we all do as humans. We get comfortable with what we're working with, what we're using. So I was definitely, especially because it was me on my own as well, as like a one-man sales band for a long time, going around the country, meeting electricians, meeting wholesalers. But naturally, my brain like always wants to hack the system. So it's like, how do I speak to, first of all, I'm going to speak to local electricians. Okay, I've spoke to all of them. Then you start branching out further afield. Then it's like, right, where is databases with all the electricians on around all the country? What are they responding well to? And it was like, the product just made so much sense. So when we first launched Eddie, what the market was doing at the time, the solar had like completely dipped off. The solar market had dipped off, and a lot of people had gone out of business. And some people thought solar was gone. Me and Lee always had faith that it was going to come back. But the guys that were left for the right reasons. So when an industry booms or there's subsidies, you get a lot of cowboys, you get a lot of noise in the space. But it had simmered down to the ones that were like legit, that were in it for the right reasons. So I basically went back to them and offered them a product that they could offer to their existing customer base that they'd already fitted solar panels for. So it gave them a little reason to go back to the customers to say, A, are you okay with your system? And B, we've got this new product that's come out. You're already saving money from your solar. You're now going to save more, and you're going to get a free tank of hot water, and it only costs you this. And they make decent margins on it. So everything boils down to money. Are they making decent money? Is it, are you backed properly with support? So if they need support calls and things like that. Luckily, I didn't know all of this. Lee knew that because he used to be an installer himself. So he knew that we had to get the support right, and we had to make sure that it was easy to install. And then I just played to my advantage of a female new business owner rocking up to a tradie counter and being like, I've got this product, even though I didn't yet. And Lee was still working on it in the background, and it was just a fancy data sheet. But I was like, it'll be here in 6 months or something like that. Like, we hope we haven't run out of money. Yeah. So we just started building momentum and speaking to different ones. And then with hacking the system, I was like, right, how do we get to even more electricians? We go to the electrical wholesalers. So that's when I started banging down the doors of your Edmondsons, your Yes Electrical, CEF. And they, at the time, didn't really have water heaters or renewable energy products or car chargers in their range. It just wasn't a thing. So we sort of carved out that industry for wholesalers as well. That was like our sucker punch into the market, was through this different way, where all the people that were selling electric car chargers, for example, were going through what we call point of sale of the car. So leasing companies, car dealerships, trying to land deals with the OEMs, but there was no money in that because it was high volume but no margin, and we didn't have that luxury at that time, so we had to come in at a different angle. Now it's like freaking free for all. Everyone sells to everyone. It's chaos out there. It's the Wild West. But it's at that point where, everybody's flooded the market because they're seeing the opportunity and they're seeing the myenergies rise and grow, and then they're buying in products from all over the world, super cheap, putting a sticker on them, selling them, not looking after the back end support. Maybe you've got a decent product, ride away for a little bit because everyone jumps on it, thinks it's the new thing, and then it's the Wild West. It's gone crazy. But in those glory days of it just establishing and us sort of like carving the way, it was a total scream. It was a laugh.
How long was it until you started to spot people kind of trying to plagiarise and playing copycat?
We had a good, when was it? So we established in 2016, and about until 2022, 2023 was when it got really like busy. So up until that point, it was just grow. Make more. build a bigger factory.
Go harder, go faster. Jordan, I want to talk to you about people. Obviously, we've spoke about communication.
Yeah.
I know that you've hired hundreds of people. You've probably had every single kind of person that you probably could under your employment. So what are the hard lessons that you've learned that actually you wish you'd known years before?
Oh, God. Hire slow, fire fast. Biggest lesson. Because I am such a loyal and forgiving person. And I've really struggled with, if someone, I know straight away in my gut if something's not going to be right. And I think, oh no, I'll give it a chance. I'll see if I can change it. I'll see if I can change myself to make it work or help change them. Just get rid. The second that you know that something's there's a cancer or there's a bad energy or it's just not fitting with the culture that you're wanting to create or it's making you question yourself or you're giving away too much power, I will never, whatever I go into next, will never let that happen again. So I think the biggest lesson to any founder out there or business owner is take your time with hiring, because the cost of hiring wrong can be monumental, huge. And if for the second that your gut tells you it's wrong, sort it out, have the difficult conversation and unpack it later. Just don't keep letting it tick on and tick on and tick on, because it's not going to do any of you in this situation any good.
And what have you found works well when it comes to, okay, I've got somebody that could be good, they've got the potential, I've got to get the most out of you and I've got to make you, at the end of the day, we know that you wake up every morning motivated because it's your business. How do you get somebody else as motivated?
I've always brought people, especially in my team, up with me. So I genuinely want everyone around me to do well. I want everybody to have a nice time because we're not here for very long. And what the hell, you go to work. I've never wanted to work. My idea of hell really is a 9-to-5 that I don't like, and I think I've had that drummed into me since my dad waking up every day saying don't go into a job that you hate. So I hate the thought of someone hating where they work. So wherever it was in my control with my teams, I'd really look after them and bring them on the up with me, because I couldn't have done it without them. They were my support system. So I've always been really open and vulnerable with my team, let them know exactly where we are, what's going on, quite open and transparent about the business. So because then you get the best out of people, you get the buy-in and everything as well. And I think in just naturally leveling people up when they're showing you true loyalty and hard graft. So when you can afford to give the pay rise, give the pay rise. If you can afford to give a little bonus, give a little bonus. If you can, it doesn't even need to be that. It can just be literally saying, what you're telling me that you haven't this afternoon off because your kid's not very well. Why are you even telling me that? Just go do it. You work like a crazy person. Just you don't need to tell me that. Just thank you for telling me, but I trust you. Just having that trust with your team is something that's, I think, has kept my team in particular so loyal to me.
I had a boss once who said everyone works better with a pat on the back, and probably at the time I was thinking, what does he mean? But now that we're running a business, you notice it, don't you? Any little pat on the back you can give to someone is a way of kind of boosting everyone up.
I agree. Sometimes I've gone a bit too far with it though. I have gone where I have bigged my team up or members of my team up so well that I've then made them think that they're not, this is bad, I've got to be careful how I frame it, but that they're too good. To the point where then they can get a bit arrogant or cocky and think even to the point I wouldn't have been able to do this without all of me. And I think, oh shit, I might have gone a bit too hard on the praise, because you can physically see you losing them.
Yeah, I've created a monster.
I've created a monster. That's exactly it. And I've done that a few times as well, where I think, right, oh God, there is a balance, and it's got to be drip fed. And I really used to struggle with giving criticism if I didn't like something. I don't like to feel like a boss. I don't know if I'm a good boss. You'd have to ask my team that, but I don't like to feel like a boss. It gives me a bit of an ick. I think that's old school. It's an old school way of thinking, this hierarchical way. I just want to hang out with cool people that make me laugh, that get me, that get the mission, that know to have a laugh, but also know to knuckle down when there's something tough that we've got to do, or deadline, or think outside the box or whatever. I guess I can have the difficult conversations, and I have had them, but I don't love it.
Yeah, I'm with you. We used to have a guy in my team who he rang me up once and said he'd seen his ex-girlfriend on Tinder and could he go home? And I thought, I've gone too far here. I've given people too much that they can ring their boss and say that. I know.
Oh God, I've got some stories as well, but it's definitely not for the podcast. I'll tell you after.
I thought, gosh, yeah. Anyway, so when we talk about scaling, so scaling people,
yeah,
I think, and me and Jack are guilty of it as well, there's always this kind of like, oh, when we get to 100 people, we won't have any problems anymore. When we get to 150, we won't have any problems anymore. So when you look back, what were those incremental jumps?
Yeah.
And what problems did you kind of swap for? So you solve that problem, but then you gain this problem at each checkpoint.
I try and think back to it, because in the early days, it was a small, tight-knit group that was like, we were pulling in friends and family support to get an order out at like Easter and stuff. It was really family vibes. The second it switched is when you started to like hire a sales director and then a marketing person and then a few in production. Like as soon as, I think from like 10 to 30 was really, really hard work, because the original folk felt like they had some sort of ownership over the business, and that, you know, who's this new person coming in that knows nothing about anything, and, you know, and being in a technology business, you've got to manage such different levels of people and personalities. It's like you've got software developers, firmware developers, like really techie engineers that are like, it's my way or the highway, and I know this because the geniuses. And then you've got egotistical salespeople, and then who mince around, and it seems like marketing are on TikTok and don't do anything, and us production folk are out here making the products that give you the lifestyle that you can. And I'm like, oh God, guys, it's like really like blue collar versus white collar mentality, and we've always wanted to bring it under one roof so that everybody felt involved. But there's always going to be those it's human nature, we're like that. But I think the definite first pain point was from that little family feel to like a bigger business now, where we're trying to put policies and procedures in place. Then it got to a point where we grew that much but between 2021 and 2022, I think it was, there was like a year where we had like 180% growth, and we had a ridiculously big order book. There was subsidies all around the world, so you could get subsidies for car chargers all around the world. And we were in the process of moving factories. So we was moving from Binbrook into a new factory in Grimsby. And we had this makeshift factory in Grimsby that was an old Wicks building that didn't even have heating, that we had to wire like heating in. And because we didn't have the latest equipment for manufacturing, it was very like manual job. So at one point we had 400 staff worldwide, and it got to a point where I didn't know everybody's name anymore. I'd walk around the town. I didn't know if they worked for me. It was like I was like, holy shit! Like we've lost control in a way, and that was wild. But I was like, maybe that's just the way things go, because it was growing. Everybody's happy, board's happy, blah blah blah. Market looks like it's doing this, not like this, like vertically up, and then all the tariffs were pulled like literally overnight. And I thought, oh, well, we'll be all right. Like the horses bolted. No, like people were buying because they were getting $1,000 off it or money off it here and then. So when sales started to go back to an organic level of growth instead of like vertical growth, and we got a new factory with shiny equipment in, we had to downsize and scale back a bit to match the level. And that was brutal. So like dealing with people at every stage has been so difficult, whether it's scaling the business or whether it's retracting back to where you need to be. At every point, it's been so hard, so hard.
And it must be, I guess, at the time, you probably don't feel like you're changing, but maybe in hindsight, there's probably different versions of Jordan throughout.
Yeah.
How did you feel through those growth spikes and those changes, and kind of when you think about it now in kind of hindsight, how was Jordan dealing with all of that?
Even when it was growing and it was like climb, I was still quite stressed. Like I was anxious, really anxious, because I don't really know. It's just so much newness because of like a 35-year-old now, but early 30s, never managed this many people, never imagined this in my wildest dreams, obviously hoped for it. It was just really anxiety riddled all the time. On hindsight, like looking back, I've always been stressed, even in the good days, it was still stressful because I'm thinking, oh my God, the rug's going to be pulled, or how do we continue at this level? Or there's always some drama going on. There's always some staffing issue. There's always a customer issue. There's always a product issue. Like, there's always something to be like worried about. So I just think it's been a decade, if I'm honest, of just really like high emotions. Like I always describe it as the highs have been mega high and amazing. And then the lows have been the lowest, like so difficult to manage. So it's just like this constant roller coaster of like up, down, up, down, up, down.
How did you, I guess, tackle that? How did you approach those?
I've got an amazing family. So I've got an amazing husband, amazing daughter, good friends, like my team as well, like my core team within myenergi who've been with me from day dot. Like, they were my biggest supporters. Like, they really protected me and shielded me from it and like helped me. It's like I had a little bubble of support like around me, which was I owe everything to. But also just like the support network at home, my family. And that's why I kept my business in my hometown. Imagine if I'd have like built it and I'd gone to the city or something, I didn't have my mum and dad around and my husband's parents, and like going home to my husband every night, who's like my rock. I couldn't have done it. I'd have had a mental breakdown. Genuinely, I don't think I could have done it without the support network. I don't know how, like, you know, like Elon. What is he on? Like, he's got to be something else, because he's not prioritizing family, is he? He's just go. And I just think, is that possible? Definitely a robot.
Definitely.
It's got about 20 kids as well, I think.
It's like, yeah, and counting.
And counting, yeah, crazy.
Robot.
It's
got to be, there's no explanation.
Robot.
Exclusive.
It's got the Neuralink in there or something like 10 years ago. I'm telling you, something's not right.
Elon, we'll put his Instagram handle in the comments. Our book is out now. Sales is Therapy is available everywhere for people who are looking to get better at communicating,
asking better questions, closing more deals, and bringing in more clients.
Beware, it is not for the faint of heart or for closed-minded people.
You can buy it in all good shops, links below.
So I want to talk about family a little bit later, so I definitely want to come back to that, but I think just so we're keeping an order, you've obviously raised money twice, I think.
Yeah.
I'd love to know the reality of what that takes, how you do it, and how it actually feels to go through the process for people who've never done it before.
Yeah, so the first time was like the best time for me, because it was literally me and Lee, who's the co-founder and the engineer. We'd been being approached by people because we had an order book and sales, and we was the new kids on the block. We were being approached by companies, individuals, saying, how are you funded? And to that point, we'd funded it ourselves. So we were like, every time we told someone we'd funded it ourselves, they were like, what? What? And I was like, help me, we're poor. Like, what do we do next? And people kept offering us money, but they wanted like the entire business or some terms that we just didn't feel right. So it was really funny. It was me and Lee on our Christmas night out. I can't remember what year it was. I'm like lost, but it was maybe 2017 or 2018 with a few of the engineers. We was at the Yardbirds in Grimsby. So people in Grimsby will know that. We was watching a rock band. And I said to Lee, who are we meeting on Monday? And do we have to prepare for it over the weekend? Because we've got another investment meeting. And he went, yeah, it's someone called Sir Terry. And I went, what? So being a Grimsby lass, obviously I'm like, what do you mean, sir? And he was like, no, he's literally called Sir Terry. And I was like, okay, give me a second name. And he was like, oh, I'm Bill Curry. Sir Terry Leahy. I went, are you joking? Like, that came up. CEO of Tesco, ex-CEO of Tesco, invented the club card book, multi-millionaire, blah, 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 blah. Now runs all this stuff. I went, are you right in the head? Like, we have got to go and prepare now. Like, this sounds like, this is legit. I was like, what the frick? And I just went sober. You know, he's having a drink and I was like, no, this is it. Something again, the spiritual thing. I was like, this is it. Because like now, I know loads of sirs and this and that, you know, like going now the business is at a certain level. I've met loads of people like that and I would have just maybe not thought anything of it. But it was just that right moment where I was like, oh, this is massive and this is definitely the one. And they were based in Liverpool. And we drove down there, rapped all the way to M&M because I was trying to like G myself up. I was that nervous. So I just like put on some gangster rap and just rapped Lee's head off the entire way. And then got there and Lee literally like, we went into the meeting and Lee froze. Like he's this shy guy. He's not so much anymore, but back in the day he was. I was like, looks like I'm carrying this meeting, and gave the best pitch of my life. And I was like, we've got sales, we've got this, and we was only asking for 150 grand. And they both said, the two investors said, go away and think about what you really need with that level of order book. And if you need manufacturing equipment and stuff, go away and think about it. And we were like, right. So we're driving home, absolutely buzzing. Thought about it, went back to them and said, oh yeah, we want 1.2. And they were like, okay. And we were like, what? Excuse me? On these terms. And they were like, yeah, well, you've got orders, you've got a good brand, we like you, we want to invest. We don't do this often, and they don't. Like, I know it now, they do not invest in early stage. They invest in healthy balance sheet businesses that have been going for a long time. They don't do this. So I was like, oh my God. And I remember when they said that, like, literally started jumping in the lift, and then it all happened quite quick. And that was one of the best feelings when it landed in the bank, seeing that money, which meant we could invest in marketing, could get the team that we needed, and we could buy some manufacturing equipment to make sure that we could produce all the products that we had for the orders that we had. And then it just started snowballing.
Wow. And then how do you go from that to round two? So when you went again, what was the rationale there?
30 million was the next raise, and that was a lot more difficult, funnily enough. And we were raising for 2 years. So originally we were going to IPO. So in 2022, like this boom that was like, Jesus, we need some more money because these sales are like ridiculous. Now's a good time to do it. There was another company IPOing that was in our industry. So we thought maybe we IPO. We'd been sold the dream. We had investors that we were pitching to. We were like having the red carpet rolled out for us in the city, speaking to all these people. And I was like, oh my God, valuations were ridiculous. And then the war in Ukraine happened and the markets closed just as we was like about to do it. So that just changed our whole trajectory, and the business actually started we was gonna raise 100 million originally. And then the business started getting a bit tougher, more crowded, as I mentioned to you before. And we run a dual track process where we were speaking to a couple of like private equity houses and VCs. And we settled on, there was a couple, but there was one that we was really aligned with, which was Energy Impact Partners, who we took the 30 million off, and we decided on the one partner instead of multiple. And it was tough because it was 2 years and it took up a lot of management's time. Like that's a lot of different decks. That's a lot of changes in the marketplace that even you don't know what's going on, because like tariffs being pulled, dates are being rolled back, there's wars, there's like supply chain issues. You're like, what is going on? It's like the world just lost its head all of a sudden. Like it's been going crazy anyway. COVID, like that little doozy was thrown in the middle of it all. So it was just carnage, but these investors believed in us, put it in. And thank God they did, because it was a really like time, actually, we went from wanting it and just doing it because we could to like then needing it, because the market was in a very different position. Everything seems to have stable, touch wood, seems to be a lot more stable now, and it's still growing, but it's just at a lot more steady, like manageable rate. And we've got new products and stuff in development, and hopefully it'll go back to growth. Like I think the world's woken up to renewables and electric vehicles and stuff like that now, so I can see that that's going, but obviously still the world is very complex, so we'll see with the geopolitical and the bashing of the green movement. All of a sudden, like through COVID, everyone was like, yes, we totally get it, and we're going electric and we're getting our panels. And I thought, oh my God, because I've worked in renewables for years, and I used to have to bang down doors to tell them about solar panels and wind. And then all of a sudden there's like vlogs starting up, there's YouTube channels, everybody gets it, rocking and rolling. Then the media starts slamming it. Then every politician starts using it as a political tool. And I'm like, oh God, here we go again. Every time I think we've cracked it in this industry, it goes like...
Another round, let's go.
Yeah. So it's just coming out of a little bit of a dip back into some sort of something that makes sense again, thank God.
When I sit here and listen to these stories, it feels like you're such a force to be reckoned with. It's like if this is happening, like there's no way, nothing's going to get in my way to stop me. And I've been like following online, and I think that transpires. And you when I read LinkedIn posts or social media and things like that, it really comes across like you are who you say you are and you do the things that you say you're going to do. I want to talk a little bit about, it's a Nikki phrase incoming. Are you ready for it?
Already icked out.
Icked out. It's personal branding.
Oh, that's all right.
It's not too icky.
No.
We've sat here with people that do this as a business, people from behind the scenes of Diary of a CEO that think about it from a hackable marketing scheme or whatever it could be. What when you think about it and you think about maybe the pros, the cons, the knock-on effect it's had for your business, what do you think?
I've got so much on this topic. Like when I first started myenergi, I wasn't as vibrant like behind the camera or in podcasts or anything. That's been a muscle that I've had to work on over this last 8-9 years. And I used to shy away from it. I didn't want to do any public speaking. I absolutely choked, in the words of Eminem, on the Google stage one time. And that was horrendous and nearly put me off for life. But me and Lee was like, look, I'm never going to be the one that's out there selling and promoting the business. And it was me and him as founders that was like, right, because he's the majority shareholder. He had the biggest stakes. He put the most money in at the beginning. And it was like, I was like, are you sure though? Because I'm, not as big a shareholder as you. I feel a bit awkward going like, I didn't invent the products. Is it right that I'm out there selling it? And he was like, Jord, I need you to. Otherwise, I'm just a guy in a shed making nice products. Like, we founded it together. I came to you. Go and spread your wings and do it because people resonate well with you. So it was him really like being my biggest cheerleader that made me go on and do it. And I really had to push myself out of my comfort zone to start developing a personal brand online. And I really leaned into LinkedIn, to be fair. I didn't use an Instagram because I felt comfortable with it. I'm a millennial. I'd had it for ages anyway, and it had always had a bit of following. But my LinkedIn was my main tool. And I really made sure that even when I wasn't in the renewable industry and I was in cycling and I was trying all different stuff, I kept it renewables focused because I always knew that that was my industry and I'd come back to it, whether it was in consultancy. This was before I set myenergi up. I thought I'm just going to keep it focused towards like LinkedIn and electricians and I just leaned into the storytelling part of the business scale up, the building a business. And I guess it was before personal brand was a thing. I feel like Stephen Bartlett and Social Chain and those guys have really made it more of a thing. I do believe in it. And I'd say 50% of my team believed in it and 50% didn't. It was like a real, maybe not 50, maybe a bit more believed in it than that. But I don't know, I always battled with this. Should I be pushing myself or should I be like, how much of myself do I push versus how much of the business? And I could see the word risk was being thrown around a little bit when we were raising capital the second time. It was like, oh God, I don't like that if I'm being seen as a risk, not a asset. It's like, makes me feel uncomfortable. So I've dialed it back in a lot of instances. I've said no to a lot of things and I've actually dimmed my experience and shine a little bit to not overpower the business in a lot of cases because I'd never want to put my own business at risk by me saying some ratchet shit on the internet.
Why do people feel like you'd be a risk?
I don't know, mate. I don't know. I think it's just because no one ever wants one person to have too much power in a business. Let's look at a big example of it now. Elon. Like again, we'll talk about him, but he's like he single-handedly has got that business to where it is. I believe that, but he could also be the one to tear it down. Like I'm a fan of Elon. I like Elon, but I think like there's now people like putting stickers on Teslas and stuff and sending them back and not buying them, and his stock price is going down and down and down. Investors that are putting money in or buying that product might see that as a risk. Some people love it. I personally love to see a face to a brand because I think it makes it much more personable. I think you can see who's in charge. It's like, it gives it more purpose than some like faceless brand that's pulling all the strings behind the scenes. I don't know. I quite like, emotionally, I like to see someone and their story. But I can understand that the older world, like the institutional world, struggles with it. Mm. And I'd be interested in the studies of that. I bet the new generation coming up, your Gen Zs, millennials, prefer to see a face and a personal brand. Mm. And I bet the boomers And is there anyone above boomers?
There must be.
Dead.
There must be at least two.
The boomers like might struggle with it and see that more as a risk of just giving one person too much power in an organisation.
What have been the fruits of doing it then? So since you pushed yourself as your own
It's
brand?
opened doors. Like, it's brought us a lot of press. You know, so I think the fact that I am a female co-founder, woman in tech, woman in renewables, woman in manufacturing, has meant that the media have gone, that's interesting. And a girl from Grimsby, you know, like, didn't go to uni, like, hang on a minute, what? You know, break a bit of a mold.
Yeah.
So it's definitely helped in that sense that it's got media attention. It's put me on podcasts. That's, you know, it's invited me to events where I've had really amazing networking that's led on to sales, like actual sales or business partnerships. It's just put the business, I believe, on a different platform to the competitors. So I think it's a major force for good in the swing, in the swing of it.
Do you think there's a formula to it? Do you think there's a way of putting out just enough?
I mean, I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's like Ollie, he'll tell you from Social Chain, or Stephen has got it dialed to like, and Daniel, you know, all these people are far more technical than me. They will be looking at data. They'll be analysing people's emotions. They probably see on you, can look on your screen and see what your eyeballs are doing and whether you're responding to it and how long you're lingering on it. I'm pretty certain there's a formula, because you see every now and again someone just rise to like the top, don't you? And or in your algorithm that's just like there all the time. I feel like sometimes people just seem to crack the code, and I don't always think that they do it on purpose, but I do think there is definitely a formula to it. I'm a lot less sophisticated than that. I'm just, whenever I feel like there's something to be said, or I get a moment of inspiration to write, I don't care what time I'm posting it. I don't care. I do try and target it to a specific platform, but I just go with how I'm feeling at the time and then see what happens. But I don't censor myself, really. I don't self-censor or anything like that. I just take those bursts of inspiration or moments of creativity and just, or moments of confidence, because there's time where I really don't feel confident and don't want to be online or post. So I just make sure I get it in when I'm feeling good.
We were having this conversation in the car that sometimes you feel like, can I be bothered? But we know that actually, with 3-4 years in the making of just being consistent, just doing that thing over and over again, using that muscle even on the days you can't be bothered.
Oh, it's so important.
That's what
like flexing that muscle. And that's why I've not stopped since like I've taken a bit of a step back from myenergi as in the exec role, because before was I've been like every role under the sun when you're a co-founder, but it's always been business development, sales. Like I was in charge of revenue globally and marketing, pretty big, high pressured jobs. Since I've taken a step back and I'm now like at board level. What was it? What I forgot. I've lost my trail of thought. What did you say before that?
Consistency.
Yeah, consistency. I don't want to fall out of the pattern. Thank you. Of doing this, you know, like talking and not doing the public speaking events, and because if I could quite easily sink back into, oh no, I'm scared. I'm not going to do it. So I'm keeping that muscle flexed and keeping the content up.
So let's talk. So you've taken a step in a different direction. So you're an executive now. Where were you at for you to say, right, this is what's going on in my life and this is why I want a bit of a change? Yeah,
so I've been thinking about it for like the last 2 years as the business was like the size that it is. We've got like, and we decided that we needed a CEO. So I thought the second that I feel that we've got a solid CEO, I'll definitely take a bit more of a back seat, because they're the ones that you pay in to like run the ship, like to steer the ship. But I'd been like trying to work my way out of it, like by pulling people up, giving people careers, opportunities, like slowly trying to dissect myself out of it, because I think that's the true vision of success, if the business doesn't completely fall apart if you're not in it. So it's like a succession plan, trying to work your way out, because it really was stressful. Like I was getting burnt out, and I also have a little daughter that I was wanting to spend some time with. And financially, I'm okay. Like another bit of advice for founders is, if you get the opportunity to take some money off the table, take it, because you never know what's going to happen. Like markets go up, markets can come down. If you've got an opportunity in front of you, nothing's real until it's real, until the money's in your bank. So I had a bit of financial stability, and I thought, I can't keep operating at this level of stress. I just know my own limits. I can't keep operating at this level of stress for much longer when I'm not the one completely in charge. I'm fine when I am. So if it's all on my head and it's my say and my overall say, but when you've got a board, when you've got a C-suite, when things are slowly and like becoming very corporate and like a little bit more out of your control from the early days, it was like I knew it was my time to start getting out a little bit and advising from a different level. And I'd always looked at like my board and thought, how do I get to where you are, where you're advising companies, where you're not taking on all the stress of the startup and the scale up and all the problems on the day-to-day, but you're giving advice based on your experience. And I've got a lot of experience over the last decade, and I'm finally at that point where I'm comfortable in the value that I've got to offer and what I know and lived experience. So I'm like, I just want a total different approach at business. So I'm doing some NED roles, still got some skin in the game with myenergi, so I'm supporting and advising them, and always online with the team. Like I'm still freaking doing it. I'm just not getting paid now. So that's a laugh on me. And yeah, I'm doing a bit more of a hands-off approach. And it's also because I was getting presented with so many amazing opportunities, like to invest in other startups or to advise, but I couldn't because myenergi was taking up all of my time. So it's just really like an era. The next 5 to 10 years are going to be advising, public speaking because I like it now, podcasting because I really enjoy that, and just sharing what I've learned and my experience with the next generation of people coming up.
Nice. So it feels like one of the first motivators that you said then was around work-life balance, or spending probably a bit more time with your daughter. Has that been possible up until now? Have you been able to manage work-life balance? To
be honest, people say to me, oh, you must have sacrificed so much time with your daughter. Like, she's 6 in June. But we forget, we had COVID. And that was we was at home for that entire time. So I was at home with my baby. And at the time, Lee was not a type of person that would let anybody work from home. He used to think it was just such a weird concept. And then COVID forced it to happen. And I'm like, because most of my job and life is online and on the phone, I didn't notice much of a change. I actually really enjoyed it because I just got all this time with my baby. So I got all that precious time when we were locked in. And it was quite sunny and nice around Cleethorpes, and I was growing the business from behind a screen, but then I was really itching to get back out. And when I did take some money off the table and got some financial stability, I didn't buy fancy things. I put it into my husband. So my husband retired, and that meant that him and Bonnie could come with me wherever I went. So I didn't have to say no to experiences. They just came with me. So if I was going to be away for a few days, I'd be like, we'd get a room with an extra bed and they'd come and they'd hang out in the day, wait for me on an evening. We'd make a weekend of it. I just managed to work my life around them because they're my priority. So I could never give that up. I just made sure that any financial success I had was invested in us as a family instead of a Lambo.
Nice. Good investment.
Although I wouldn't say no to one either.
I've been trying to think how to mould this question without it being typical man asking it, but I'll do my best.
Yeah.
So I've got 4 boys.
Yeah,
I know what
amazing.
It's like to have children in the house, but I've never delivered or grown a baby.
Yeah.
And I remember what the first trimester looked like, lots of being sick and feeling rough, and then delivering a baby and recovery after that. But you've had to do those things whilst having a business and probably not moments where it's not stressful and there's not things to do. So how do you do that?
It was chaos. It was even one point, because she came early. She came nearly 9 weeks early.
Oh, wow.
And I was about to do a book signing. I was in my cute little shorts with my little bump, pop in. I was about to go sign books for my Sparky book that I'd released, and I realised that I'd not felt movements. And I was like, wow, because she was an active baby. And I didn't feel movements, and we was bang in the middle of growing the business. And I went to the hospital. A couple of hours later, I'm in emergency C-section. She's come in. We're both in intensive care. And we was in the middle of this deal, the first 1.2 million, or it was it was a few months after. And there was some sort of clause in the deal where we had to take more money if we didn't get the products out on time and they got more equity. And we didn't get the products out in time and we needed the money. So it was it'd gone from 1.2 million to 1.8 million. And Lee was coming to see me in intensive care with these spreadsheets. And I'm literally sat in bed, after transfusions and that, being looking at spreadsheets like, Lee, this is our business. Don't let, getting the deal finalised or whatever and having a look at it. So I really remember that moment. And I also had a member of staff come to me and tell me in hospital that the business was going to shit without me being there and people were taking over. And this, when I said to you about that stage of it going from a few people to like 20, 30 people and egos and all this, I had one of my sales guys come to me and say, everything's falling apart, blah, blah, blah. And my husband was like, dude, she's in recovery. She said, I just had a major operation. Can you take this shit? This shit can wait until my wife and my daughter's like, all right. So it took my husband to step in. There's been moments where it has been really, really difficult. But the one thing that I find more difficult than the physical side of that is the mental side of it. And I think that that's something that men will just never understand. It's because of the hormonal changes that's going on. You don't even know what's happening to you. You don't know the chemical reactions that you're having. You don't know why you want to burst into tears. You don't know why you're more emotional in that board meeting than you should be. You don't for 2 years, I felt like I had a veil over me, and you have to pretend to be okay, or you're not going to make it in your career. It's really hard. So you're going through this emotional stuff, but then you're having to stiff up a lip and be the alpha and be the bloke that you've got to be to survive in your career. When meanwhile you're going on absolute turmoil. It could make me emotional, really, if I think too hard about it, just how bad it is for women with just hormones alone. You go through puberty, it's harder. You go through childbirth and pregnancy, then childbirth, then freaking menopause. Give us a goddamn break. And it's wild. And it's only when you feel okay again and feel yourself and you go, oh, I'm not crazy. It's like a veil lifts. And my husband said he felt like the closest thing to it was when he had COVID. And then a bit of long COVID or whatever after, where he's got a bit of brain fog and a bit misty. And then the next day you're fine. It's I said, that is how it feels when you're having a hormonal overload. That is literally how it feels. You've got a veil over and you can't rationalise. You don't know up from down, you don't know left from right, all your emotions are scrambled. And then one day you'll wake up and you're dead confident again and you're fine. You're totally, and you're
what's going on?
Oh my God, it's emotional roller coaster. So it's a trip alone. And I just think that the best thing that men can do for women in those situations is just have a little bit of empathy and patience, and don't call us too emotional.
Yeah, I've written that one down.
Don't call us too emotional, especially as leaders, especially as female leaders. That is just not the words we want to hear.
I think one of the things from sitting here is just the word that keeps going over and over is just resilience, and I feel like you just scream that of right, okay, bring it on. And it's not a case of being too stoic in the sense that, I won't let it affect me. It's just a case of I know that I'll make it out on the other side. Mm-hmm. So if let's say that We Have a Meeting podcast does all right and we're still going in 10 years, we say, Jordan, we want you back on for part 2. What do you think if we say, right, let's look at the last decade from when you last left? What do you think of going to be some of the significant changes, some of the achievements? What do you think that the next 10 years hold for you?
I'm in the process of figuring that out. When I started myenergi, I did a mood board and I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted a Silicon Valley type office. I wanted a sick team that loved coming to work. I had this whole vision of how I wanted the business to go. I had a check that I wrote myself and was that is what I'm going to make. This, and I'm not into all the Secret and stuff like that. I don't really watch it, but I do believe in having goals and working towards something. And I'm at that stage in my life now where I'm rewriting everything. There's a few personal goals that I'd love to do that are creative, but I don't want to put the pressure on them or put them out there just yet. But I've got a few creative things that I'm working on. And for me, it would just be I don't know, because I've achieved a hell of a lot that I ever thought I could. I want to be healthy. I want to inspire others. So I want to get involved in some other businesses. And there's a few creative projects that I want to do, but I don't want to jinx them or put too much pressure from the outside world on me expecting it. I just want it to come naturally. So I honestly don't know, because I live literally day by day. And I need to really sit down and set those goals out and work out how I'm going to get there and what that looks like at the moment. So you've actually caught me in quite a transitional phase, because I'm only 6 weeks in from leaving the full-time job, letting the dust settle. My feet haven't touched the ground since. I've been all over the country doing podcasts, doing speaking. I'm going to get a holiday in and then I'll start assessing my options. So I honestly don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
Well, thank you for joining us. I think it's an exciting time, and you spoke there about inspiring other people. I know that other people listening to this will be, I mean, I feel pumped up. I want to go and run through a stained glass window, Jordan. So I know a good one. I'll
baby.
Yeah, there we go.
Physically want it. My husband always says that. He's like, I'd love that challenge.
Yeah, I've got some things to tell you in the car home. Jordan, thank you for joining us. If people want to check you out, get in touch, be inspired by you, where can they find you?
Jordy.co.uk. JORDEE.co.uk.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.